Welcome back to True Ghost Vault, where every story is a descent into the shadows, into silence, into things that were never supposed to be found. What you're about to hear isn't folklore. It's not a campfire tale or urban myth. It's what's left when the light fails, when the cameras cut out, when the voices go quiet and something else keeps recording. These are the accounts pulled from wreckage, from last transmissions, from the minds of those who came back wrong or didn't come back at all. So take a breath, because this story, it goes deeper than you think. Story 1. Something knocks at my submarine window every night. I don't know when I stopped sleeping. I used to drift off easily to the hum of the engines and the slow rhythm of sonar pulses. It was calming at first, a heartbeat beneath the sea. But that was before the knocking started. Before the silence of the deep stopped being peaceful and started feeling like a trap. It began on day 11. I was alone in the observation chamber reviewing footage from the external cameras. My crewmates were either asleep or busy maintaining the core systems. The lights were dimmed to simulate night, something about circadian rhythm and psychological regulation. But out here, time doesn't exist. It stretches, it folds into itself. And when you're submerged 3 miles beneath the ocean's surface, you start to realize that everything above sunlight, gravity, birdsong, is a fading memory, a lie you once lived. At first I thought it was nothing. A soft tap on the port glass, just a twitch in the hull from pressure, or maybe a loose metal hinge. But then it came again. Tap, 3 seconds. Tap, then silence. I stared at the viewport for a long time, waiting. The exterior lights barely reached beyond the thick black water. You could see the occasional swirl of silt, the drifting of a jellyfish caught in the flow. But mostly it was just dark, the kind of darkness that watches you. I told myself it was just my imagination. Long hours, recycled air, too much caffeine. But I couldn't look away from the glass. The next night it happened again. Same time, same rhythm. This time I leaned forward. My breath fogged the cold surface of the window. I turned off the overhead lights. The glow of the monitors threw pale blue shapes against the walls. And in that silence, thicker than water, I waited. 02:17 a.m. Tap. The sound was sharper, like knuckles against glass, not metal, not shifting pressure. This was deliberate. I felt a chill rise from the base of my spine. By day 14, I stopped telling anyone. What was I supposed to say? Hey, I think something is knocking at my window in the middle of the ocean. They'd assume I was cracking. Maybe I was. The deep has a way of peeling your sanity in slow layers, like skin off a fruit. But the marks were real. I found them on day 17. Tiny scratches on the inner ring of the port, not gouges, not cracks, scratches, like something with claws or nails had been dragging them across the glass. I ran my finger along them. They weren't there the night before. I was sure of it. I took a photo and cataloged it in the maintenance log. No one followed up. It escalated on day 20. The knocking came again, but this time it was followed by something worse. A sound, just under the frequency of human hearing. A pressure behind the eardrums, like a hum you can't tune out. It throbbed in time with the knocking, and I swear, I saw something shift outside the glass. Not move. Shift, like the water itself had folded in on a shape. I turned on the high-beam exterior lights. They flickered, then died. Only the emergency LEDs remained a ring of red, drowning the chamber in hell-colored shadows. And still, the knocking continued. Tap, 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 faster, closer. I backed away from the glass heart hammering in my throat. I felt watched. Not by something in the distance, but by something pressing its face right against the window, inches from mine, separated only by a few inches of engineered plexiglass and whatever curse lived in the trench outside. The footage didn't show anything. I checked it over and over, rewound, zoomed, isolated frames. The night vision feed showed only the swirling black of the abyss. No shapes, no lights, no movement, nothing, except for the reflection of me staring wide-eyed into the dark, and something behind me. It looked like a face. No, not a face, a mask, oval, featureless, glossy like wet stone. Hanging in the air just over my shoulder, I spun around so fast I knocked over the chair. The room was empty. I paused the feed, took screenshots, tried to extract the image. The file corrupted. Just that frame. All the others were fine. I stopped watching the recordings after that. That night, I woke up choking. Water. My lungs screamed for air, but all I could taste was brine. I thrashed in the sheets, gasping, coughing, reaching for something solid. It took me a full minute to realize I was dry. The air was still stale, metallic, cold. But my lips were wet, salty. I stumbled to the observation deck. The window was covered in condensation, as if someone or something had been breathing on the other side. And then the knock came again. Not soft this time. Violent. Bang. The whole chamber shook. Tools fell from their racks. The metal frame groaned under pressure. It felt like the sea itself wanted in. I didn't sleep after that. I started hearing whispers. Not words, just murmur. Like distant conversations bleeding through the hull. I'd walk down the corridor and swear I heard someone calling my name. But when I turned the corner, there'd be no one. Just empty bunks, humming machinery, red emergency lighting, casting long shadows across the steel. And always, the knocking. It followed me. I began to suspect it wasn't just the window. Sometimes I'd hear it at the bulkhead, other times on the ceiling above my quarters. And once I heard it directly behind me, like knuckles rapping gently against the back of my skull. I turned around. No one. But my ears wouldn't stop ringing. I stopped using the lights altogether. They made me feel exposed, like a beacon for whatever was out there. I preferred the dark now. At least then I couldn't see the faint outlines pressing against the glass. Couldn't see the smear it left behind. Couldn't watch the fog swirl in slow spirals as if breath passed from the other side. But darkness didn't mean safety. Darkness has weight down here. It pushes in from every direction, wraps around your bones, finds the cracks in your mind, and pours itself in. You stop being afraid of the dark. You start being afraid of what knows you're in it. I tried playing music, headphones, pink noise, anything to drown it out. But it still came, every night. 02:17. Sometimes it was a tap, sometimes it was a scrape. Sometimes, God help me, it sounded like nails dragging slowly across the hull. The worst nights were when it didn't come at all, because then I knew it was watching, waiting, close. I found the recording. I wasn't supposed to. It was buried deep in the encrypted backup logs, mislabeled as an engineering diagnostic file. I opened it out of boredom, just trying to distract myself, and what I heard sent a crack through whatever part of my sanity I still believed was intact. It was audio only. 6 minutes and 42 seconds long. It started with static, then a series of low-frequency hums. Standard sonar bleeds, nothing unusual. But at 02:17:06, something came through the mic. Something with breath, not speech, not human. Like a mouth too wide, too wet, mouthing through water. Not a word, a sound, drawn out, curious, hungry. At 02:17:24, a loud knock. Directly on the external mic casing. Then silence. Then a whisper right against the receiver. Almost through. I sat back in my chair, numb. I replayed it. Again. The timestamp never changed. 02:17, every single night. I don't remember deleting the file, but I know it's gone now. And the mic ripped clean off the hull 2 nights later. The command said it was structural fatigue, that the casing failed under pressure and sheared off. But I saw the footage. Before it corrupted just like the others, I saw something reach for it. Something long and wrong. It didn't swim, it crawled. Through water like it knew it wasn't supposed to be there but didn't care. And for a moment, it looked at me. Not at the camera. At me. Like it knew I was watching. Like it recognized me. Like it remembered. I confronted the captain. He looked tired, pale, like someone had been knocking at his skull for too many nights. I asked him directly, "Has anything like this happened before?" He didn't answer right away, just stared out the small porthole behind his desk. Then he said something I'll never forget. "We used to have 13 crew members." I blinked. "We have 13. He shook his head slow. "Count again." I did. That night. And he was right. There were only 12. And no one else seemed to remember the missing one. No name, no face, no records, no bunk. But I remember his laugh. I remember him asking me for extra coffee on day 4. I remember his boots, black, scuffed size 12, lined up beside mine outside the mess hall. Now they're gone. And everyone acts like they were never there. I think I know what it wants. It isn't just knocking anymore. It's listening. I can feel it when I speak, when I breathe too loudly, when I pray. It presses closer. It lingers longer. It's learning. I tested it. Stood in front of the viewport, whispered my name. Once. It answered. A faint echo like someone repeating it underwater. A slow warble, my own voice dragged across the trench and back into my ears, tainted, broken. The knock came instantly. So hard it sent a fracture through the inner glass. That's when I knew. It doesn't want in. It wants me out. The water tank ruptured this morning. Not one of the systems tanks. My private supply. I'd sealed it myself, reinforced the lining, triple-checked the valves. It burst. And when I went to inspect it, the water was wrong. Black, thick. Smelled like brine and rusted meat. Inside was a fish, or what had once been a fish. But its skin was translucent eyes, milky mouth wide open in an eternal scream. And inside that mouth, something blinked. I threw up right there on the deck. When I told the crew, they checked. The tank found nothing. Clean. No damage. Water clear. But I know what I saw. And now I know something else. This thing, it's already inside. I stopped reporting incidents. No one believes me. Worse, they've started watching me like I'm the problem. The way the navigator lowers his voice when I walk by. The way the medic offers sleep aids with too much pity. They think I'm unraveling. Maybe I am. But I'd rather be unraveling than blind. Because something is here. And it's getting closer. I hear it now in the water pipes. Not the creaks and whines of pressure flux. No, this is different. Rhythmic. Wet, like something crawling through the system, dragging itself through the narrow spaces, brushing against metal. And sometimes, when the pipes shudder, the walls breathe. I can see the condensation pulse outward like lungs, exhaling steam. I haven't showered in 3 days. I don't trust the water. It smells off. Faint, but there. Like mold and decay beneath the surface. And something sweet, too sweet. Like rotting fruit left in the sun. The dream started 2 nights ago. At least I think they're dreams. I wake up drenched in sweat, sometimes standing, sometimes curled on the metal floor beside the window. And always, I remember the same thing, floating outside the sub, tethered to nothing, surrounded by black. Except I'm not alone. There's a shape in the water circling slowly. I can't see it, but I feel it. Its gravity, its age, its awareness. And every time just before I wake up, I hear it whisper inside my head, as if transmitted through bone. Let go. Last night I tried. I opened the chamber doors, not the outer hull, just the inner. I walked down the corridor, past the humming server bank, past the galley to the external access hatch. The emergency dive suit hung like a waiting body on the wall. I stared at it for a long time. I pressed my hand to the hatch window. The water stared back. And in the faint reflection, I saw someone behind me. But when I turned, the hall was empty. Still, the knock came from inside the hatch. Not out. It's in the air now. The thing. Not a creature anymore. An infection. I think it's learning to wear us. I confronted the captain again. Told him we had to surface. That something was wrong with the ship, the mission, the very trench we were sent to monitor. He didn't argue. He just looked relieved. He said, "We're past the point of surfacing." I asked what he meant. He didn't answer. Just handed me a file folder, old and creased, labeled Project Persephone. Inside were photos. Black and white, grainy. Underwater scans, structures. One looked like a door. Not man-made, not naturally formed. Carved, ornate. Covered in barnacles and algae, but unmistakably built. And in the final photo, a diver drifting too close to it. His face, what was left of it, looked like it had screamed itself inside out. We were never supposed to come back. This wasn't exploration. This was containment. And now it's loose. Today I found water on the inside of my helmet. My dive suit hasn't moved in days. No one's touched it. But there it was, wet, dripping, pooling at the base. I smelled it. Same brine-sweet rot. I looked inside the helmet. Teeth, human. Floating at the bottom like a fossil, tiny and yellowed, still rooted in a piece of gum tissue. I turned to call the medic, but I was alone. And when I looked back, the teeth were gone. The engineer died this morning. They said it was a stroke. Sudden, no warning. I helped carry his body to the storage locker. We zipped the bag. But before the captain closed the hatch, I saw his hand. The skin was translucent, veined, webbed. No one else noticed. Or they pretended not to. I've stopped pretending. The knocking hasn't stopped. It's grown into something worse. Last night I didn't hear it at the window. I heard it at the door. 5 sharp knocks. Slow, waiting, like someone asking to come in, or already had. I didn't open it. I don't know if I would have seen a person or if I would have seen myself. Because when I passed the mirror in the hall this morning, my reflection didn't move. It just stared, and its mouth was full of water. The sub is quiet now. Too quiet. No engine hum. No sonar ping. Just the groaning of steel under pressure and the occasional wet creak like bones shifting beneath a grave. I haven't seen anyone in almost 12 hours. No announcements, no footsteps, just empty corridors and flickering lights. I passed the mess hall. Plates still on the table. Food half-eaten untouched. Chairs turned as if everyone stood up at once. Gone. Vanished. Or taken. I walked to the crew quarters. Beds unmade. Boots scattered. Doors open. Personal items untouched. But no people. Only wet footprints leading toward the observation chamber. Not going out. Coming in. I don't know, what keeps me here. Fear, madness. Something older than those things. The thing at the window doesn't knock anymore. It doesn't have to. It knows it's won. And now, it watches. Everywhere I go, I feel it. In my ears, in my blood. In the quiet drip from the ceiling above my bunk. In the strange slithering warmth of the floor beneath my bare feet. It lives in the hull now. The submarine has become its skin. And we're inside it. I went to the control room. Tried to access external comms. Send an SOS. No signal. The coordinates showed something impossible. We were deeper than the Mariana Trench. Deeper than physics allowed. Deeper than maps go. As if the ocean opened and swallowed us whole into some place not meant to be seen. And on the screen, something moved. Just for a second. A shape. Massive. Pale. Watching. No limbs. No face. Just presence. The kind of presence that bends thought. That whispers in shapes, not words. I vomited blood into my lap. And then I heard it again. Knocking. But not from the outside. From behind the walls. Like something moving between the layers of steel. Like it's learned how to crawl the space between matter. Like it's being born. I went back to the chamber. The main viewport was cracked. Hairline fractures spidering across the surface. Pressing inward. Breathing outward. And on the other side in the dark eyes, not glowing, not red, just open, staring, endless. A field of them, millions, a swarm of watching things. I reached out, not with my hand, with my mind. And something reached back. It was cold, wet, not physically, but emotionally, like touching grief, or the moment before death. And it said one word. Remember, I woke up on the floor. I don't know how much time passed. The ship is still. The air is thin. The lights are dying. I think the hull has already cracked and I'm just too far gone to notice the water rising. Or maybe there's no water left. Maybe there's only one. Sometimes I still try to call out. Through the comms, through the walls, through prayer. But the only voice that answers now is my own. Echoing from the other side of the glass, begging me to open the hatch. I'm the last one left. I think I was always the last. Maybe the others were never real. Maybe this was always a coffin, not a vessel. I'm sitting by the window now, every night. And I wait for the knocking. But it doesn't come anymore. Now I knock. Once, twice, 3 times. And somewhere in the dark, something answers. Story 2, What Lurks Beneath the Lighthouse. The first time I heard it, I was alone. Rain hammered the rocks like a curse, and the ocean clawed at the shoreline with the patience of something ancient. Inside the lighthouse, the walls moaned in rhythm. with the storm wooden ribs aching as the wind scraped along the stone. The bulb above me flickered, once, twice. Then I heard the voice. It wasn't loud, barely audible, like a whisper swallowed by water. But it was inside the lighthouse. I had only been on the island 4 days. They said the old keeper left suddenly. Didn't pack, didn't leave a note. Just gone. The relief contract was last minute. Desperate. Triple pay, no questions asked. That should have been the first sign. The supply boat left the same day it brought me. Captain didn't linger. Didn't tie up. Just unloaded and vanished into the fog like something chased him. I told myself it was weather. Storm season. Normal. But nothing about this place felt normal. The lighthouse is tall, narrow, built in 1883. Stone foundation iron stairs winding up through 6 levels. At the top, the lantern room crowned by the lens, still operational, still rotating, even though no one could tell me why it needed to be. The nearest shipping lane was over 40 miles out. Below the tower, tunneled into the cliffside, are the original storage rooms, stone walls, low ceilings, heavy wooden doors swollen with salt. I didn't want to go down there. Not at first. Nights were worst. There's something about a storm at sea that feels personal when you're alone on an island. The waves don't crash, they scream. The wind doesn't blow, it accuses. Every groan of the lighthouse frame sounds like a voice trying to escape the stone. That night the storm was angry. Sheets of rain slapped the glass. The beam rotated, cutting through fog like a blade. Then it stopped. Dead. No click, no fuse. Just stopped. And I heard it again. Downstairs. A whisper. Come down. I didn't want to go. But the flashlight was there, and my body moved before my brain agreed. The steps creaked under me. The air got colder the further down I went. Not just damp, but wrong. Like I was walking into a crypt, still sealed with breath. When I reached the storage level, the door was open. I never leave that door open. Beyond it, a narrow corridor, stone walls sweating. The floor sloped gently downward, deeper than I remembered from the schematics. There was no light beyond the doorway, just shadow and breath. I swear it was breathing. I stepped forward. The flashlight flickered. My pulse thudded behind my eyes. I moved slow, each step peeling a layer off my sanity. In the silence, the storm above felt like another world, far away, irrelevant. And then I saw it. Carved into the wall low near the floor, a symbol. A spiral drawn in what looked like rust, or blood. Or both. The spiral pulsed when I looked at it too long. My flashlight died. I heard movement in the dark, behind me. But when I turned to run, the hallway was gone. I must have blacked out. Or the hallway shifted. Changed. Bent. I don't know how long I stood there, frozen in darkness, breathing in the salt and rot. But when my flashlight flickered back to life, barely a single weak beam stabbed forward through what looked like a tunnel carved straight into the earth. This wasn't part of the lighthouse. This was older. The walls were wet with black moss. The floor slick and uneven, as if worn down by bare feet over decades, centuries. The air tasted metallic, thick with something that clung to the tongue. I tried to turn back. I did. But the door I'd come through was gone. Not closed gone, just stone. And I was alone, underground, with the whispering. I pressed forward. What else could I do? The tunnel led downward in a spiral, just like the one carved into the wall. and with each turn I felt the air change. Not colder, not heavier, smarter. It watched me. It understood me. And then I heard it again. Not behind me, not ahead, inside me. A voice that spoke without sound. He fed us light. I stopped walking, my stomach turned to ice, my hands trembled. And then came the sound of footsteps behind me. Heavy, wet, bare. I ran. The tunnel didn't end. It wound deeper and deeper until gravity itself felt confused. My flashlight cut through endless dark, catching glimpses, shapes, carvings, remnants of rituals too fast to register. Walls breathing, stones twitching like muscle. I didn't look closely. I didn't want to see. Something was down here with me. I knew that now. And not just one thing. I wasn't in a tunnel. I was in a throat. And I was being swallowed. At last, the ground leveled. The corridor opened into a wide chamber domed like the inside of a skull. In the center stood a massive stone column inscribed with hundreds of those spirals interlocked. Writhing etched so deep they bled shadow. And around the column, bodies. Dozens of them, kneeling, still, as if in prayer. Some were old, bone dry, covered in dust. Others were newer, damp, fresh, eyes open, mouths wide. I didn't recognize any of them until I did. The second body on the left, the lighthouse keeper. His face sagged with rot. His uniform clung to bone. But I knew that patch, that name, Collins. His lips were moving, barely, soundless, repeating the same phrase over and over, eyes locked to the ceiling. We keep the light out. We keep the light out. We keep the... Then his head snapped toward me, and he screamed. The sound wasn't human. Not just a scream. Not just lungs tearing against old air. It was layered, wet, guttural, choked with something black and thick. It echoed through the chamber like a call from the bottom of the ocean, vibrating the bones in my legs, rattling the fillings in my teeth. And then the others moved. All of them. As one. Heads lifting, spines snapping upright. Eyes opening in unison, glassy and wet, like something born in salt water. They turned to face me, mouths hanging open in silence. But I could feel the scream still vibrating in my head. They saw me. Not as a stranger, as a replacement. I turned and ran. The passage behind me wasn't the same as before, wider, slicker, almost soft beneath my boots. The stone pulsed beneath me as if it had veins. I didn't care. I ran until my legs burned, until the whispering drowned out thought. He fed us light. The light is a wound, a door. Let it open. My flashlight died again. Total darkness swallowed me, and something touched my shoulder. I woke lying on the floor of the storage room. Back inside the lighthouse. No blood, no carvings, no tunnel, no bodies. Just the faint creak of wood above and the rhythmic churn of waves outside. But something was off. The air was still damp, too damp. My boots soaked, my hands shaking. And on the inside of my left palm, a small spiral. Drawn in something dark, sticky, and still wet. I stumbled upstairs. The tower was empty, silent. The light at the top rotating again on its own. I don't remember turning it back on. I don't remember climbing the step. But I stood there, inside the lantern room, staring out over an ocean that no longer looked like water. The waves moved wrong. The surface warped, breathing outward like a lung. And then the beam swept past something massive, just beneath the waves, too big to comprehend. not a shape. A presence, waiting, coiled, awake. It's in the lighthouse now. I feel it every time I walk down the stairs. The wood bends in new ways. The shadows don't stay still. Doors open when I'm not looking. And sometimes late at night, I see footprints in the salt on the floor. Bare, wet, and spiraling inward. I haven't tried to leave. I think it wouldn't let me. I think the lighthouse isn't a building anymore. It's a mouth. And I am what's inside it. I started sealing the doors at night. Not for safety, for ritual. I don't remember when it became a routine, only that now I must do it. Bolt the lower hatch. Slide the iron lock on the spiral stairs. Draw a line of salt across the threshold to the lantern room. The salt never stays. By morning, it's gone damp, scattered, pulled into the boards like something licked it away. I sleep with the light on. But sleep isn't the word anymore. I drift. I hear things in the fog. Not the wind, not waves. Voices. Some speak in English, some in nothing I recognize. But all of them say the same word eventually. Open. The mirror shattered yesterday. I didn't break it. It was just lying there, cracked in 7 perfect splits, like fingers reaching for the reflection inside. My face looked wrong in the shards. Too long. Mouth smiling when I wasn't. And behind me, for just a moment, something else. Tall, bent, leaning close. I turned around so fast I hit the wall. The room was empty, but my reflection was still watching me from the floor. There's something in the basement now. I've boarded it up, tried to, but the wood splits. The nails rust overnight. I hear breathing through the cracks, slow, deliberate. It doesn't want out. It wants me to join it. The journal I found yesterday belonged to Collins, the last keeper. At first, it was normal weather logs. Supply counts, shift rotations. Then came the entries about the spiral, the tunnel, the stone chamber. He'd seen it too. He'd heard the whispering. But he stayed because of the light. He wrote that the light is not a warning for ships. It's a seal, a wound in the world that has to stay open but not too wide. It has to pulse to rotate like a lid, venting pressure. A lid on something buried beneath the sea, older than flesh, older than words. Collins wrote, if the light ever stops turning, it wakes up hungry. I haven't eaten in 2 days. The food rots too quickly. Mold blooms in minutes. The water tastes like copper and algae. I drink it anyway. I'm not sure what's keeping me alive anymore. It doesn't feel like hunger. It feels like I'm being preserved, like it needs me intact. I caught my reflection smiling again. I wasn't. Its teeth were longer. Last night, the light stopped again. No storm, no warning, just stillness. And in the stillness, something stepped up the stairs. Each tread slow, wet, bare. I didn't move, couldn't. The door to the lantern room creaked, opened an inch. A cold breeze salted with rot and age slipped through the gap. And something breathed my name, not in voice, in memory. I wept, because it wasn't asking anymore. It was inviting. I don't know how many days it's been. The sun hasn't risen in some time. Or maybe the fog is just too thick now. The light continues to spin, weak and wheezing like the last breath of something dying. I don't remember turning it back on. I don't remember anything from yesterday. But I remember the sound last night. The door opening. Not creaking, not breaking, yielding. Like it wanted to be opened. Like it had been waiting. The basement is no longer a room. It's a corridor again. The spiral tunnel breathing with pulse and purpose. The stones are warmer now. The moss glows faintly. I hear water dripping, but there's no water anymore. Just sound. Just the heartbeat of the thing below. And I hear others. Moving, whispering. Some I recognize Collins, his voice dry and hollow. Others I don't. One of them sounds like me, but stretched, slowed, wounded. They chant in unison. The light kept it sleeping. The keeper fed it silence. Now it will speak again. I walked into the tunnel. I didn't resist. It no longer scares me, not the way it used to. The fear is familiar now, like a second skin. Like something you wear so long you forget it doesn't belong to you. The chamber is waiting. The bodies have changed. They're not kneeling. They're smiling. Their mouths open wider than should be possible. Spirals bloom from their skin like barnacles. Their eyes follow me as I pass, but none of them speak. They don't need to. The column speaks now. The stone is bleeding. Black ichor seeps from its carvings, drifting upward into the air like smoke. Inside the spirals, something stirs. I see movement, faces, mouths, too many teeth. And in the center of it all, pulsing like a tumor of light and flesh, it waits. Not a god, not a creature, not anything we have words for. Just hunger made shape, loneliness turned inside out. And it sees me. I step forward. My feet move without instruction. I reach the base of the column and kneel just like the others. I don't feel pain or cold. I feel understood, accepted. It whispers not in words, but in understanding. It says, "You have been the light. Now become the wound." And I say yes. When I open my eyes, I'm in the lantern room again. Standing, breathing. But the light is no longer spinning. The sea is flat, still, too still. Far on the horizon, a ship, headed straight for the rocks. I don't light the lamp, I don't warn them, I listen to the knocking. It's beneath the floorboards now, inside the walls, inside me. And when I smile, I see my reflection smile back. Its teeth are not mine. Story 3. I joined a deep-sea exploration team. I'm the only one who came back human. There were 6 of us when we went down. We left the surface at midnight, strapped into the submersible like passengers in a coffin. No windows, just screens, just sonar, just metal between us and the deepest black water on Earth. They called it Expedition Grey Current, a military-funded deep-sea mapping project cloaked in civilian science. What they didn't say was why they chose this trench uncharted, unspoken. In naval archives, its coordinates previously redacted. But they knew something lived down there. And now I know too. Because I saw it. Because I heard it. Because I'm the only one who made it back. Not all of me, but enough to speak. The descent took 8 hours. 8 hours of pressure wrapping around us like a slow, cold hand. We passed the abyssal zone. Then the Hadal. Then something else. The sonar stopped working around 22,000 feet. We weren't supposed to go deeper. But the trench kept pulling, as if the sub wasn't sinking but being drawn. It started with the lights. The internal fluorescence flickered, then dimmed. Then something tapped the hull. Soft, 3 times. Like fingers, testing. We all heard it. We just didn't speak, because to speak would have meant it was real. We hit bottom at 28,000 feet. Except there wasn't a bottom. The pressure sensors redlined. and the external cameras cut to static. Then came the sound. Not from the sub, from the water, through it. A low pulsing hum, almost like a voice, almost like a lullaby. Keller, our engineer, said it was sonar bounce back. Said it was a glitch. He said a lot of things before he started screaming. Before he tried to rip the floor open with his bare hands. The first crew member changed at hour 13. Not died. Changed. Keller's eyes dilated until no whites remained. His tongue turned dark, swollen, and he began smiling. The kind of smile people carve into trees during a breakdown. Not happy, hollow. His body trembled. His fingernails split and started to curl back, growing wrong. We sedated him, tied him down. The straps didn't hold. He peeled out of them like wet paper and disappeared into the access hatch that led to the rear ballast chamber. We never saw him again, but we heard him. Wet dragging sounds against the hull. From the outside, we should have ascended. We tried, but something had locked propulsion. Dead switches, unresponsive hydraulics, and the comms silent. We were anchored, not physically, psychologically. Something held us there. Something was watching, waiting, and whatever it was, knew we were listening. The ballast chamber shouldn't have opened on its own. There's no manual override from the inside, and the only one with the access code was the captain. But I watched it unlock. One red light blinking into green. The door yawning open like a mouth that had been waiting to be fed. We didn't go in. None of us volunteered to search, because the air was wrong. It reeked of copper and decay, and something else, something ancient and reptilian. Like old water turned sour, like meat long forgotten in a flooded tomb. We sealed the door. That was when the scratching began. From the inside. By hour 19, Hendricks started hearing voices, whispers. He said they came from inside the ballast tanks, even though they were sealed and dry. I told him it was stress, claustrophobia, audio hallucination from oxygen imbalance. I said it even though I'd heard them too. Soft, rhythmic, like chanting. He locked himself in the medbay and refused to open it. At hour 22, the lights in the medbay went dark, and we heard something wet moving through the vents. That night we stopped tracking time. It stopped existing. The sub shook, not violently, gently, like something massive was brushing against it. Like a snake the size of a building was circling us in the dark. I watched the pressure monitors spike and flatten again. Water temperature dropped 9 degrees in 4 seconds. We were no longer at the bottom. We were inside something. I'm not being poetic. The sonar, when it worked, showed nothing but walls, a chamber. No silt, no current, just space, breathing. We had entered it. They told us it was a geological anomaly. They told us we'd be mapping plate structures. But what we found was not geology. It moved. It watched. And one by one, it changed us. Dr. Baines was next. She was the linguist brought to decode anomalous glyphs supposedly found on deep coral structures. She believed in patterns. She saw logic in chaos. That made her more vulnerable. She began scratching symbols into her arms, not with a blade with her nails. Spirals, rows of angled slashes. Some were letters, others weren't human. She said it was speaking to her, that the hum in the walls was a language, that the thing outside was teaching her how to listen. We restrained her. We failed. We found her curled in the lab the next day. smiling. She had removed her eyes, surgically, carefully, and on the walls in her blood she had written, "It wants to see through us." Only 3 of us left, me, Larson, and Cho. Cho stopped eating. He said the food wasn't safe, said it had teeth when he bit into it. Larson and I thought he was losing it until we found the ration packs pulsing on the counter, moving like they were breathing. We threw them out the disposal chamber. That was when the creatures spoke again, through the sub's speakers. Not in words, in feeling, a pulse of sorrow, of hunger. And beneath that curiosity, it didn't hate us. It wanted to change us. We should have died, but death was never the point. We were not invaders. We were material. By hour 40, we had stopped speaking to each other, not out of fear, out of instinct. Words felt dangerous. Like sound itself was an offering. Like the air carried more than vibration, it listened. And if it heard the wrong thought, it answered. Larson went first, not into death, into something else. We found him staring at the main viewport, eyes wide, unblinking. He kept repeating a phrase under his breath, something that wasn't in any language I know. But I understood it. He said, "It showed me its mouth." And then he opened his own, wider than should be possible. His jaw cracked, skin tore, and something looked out from inside him. We didn't kill him. We couldn't. He turned and walked into the flooded sector like it was home. Cho didn't move for hours after that. When he did, he handed me his dive knife, told me I'd need it, told me not to let it wear me. That was the last thing he said before he opened the airlock and stepped out into the pressure. No suit, no scream, just acceptance. And I was alone, but I wasn't. Not really. Because the creature had been speaking to me for a while now. In the spaces between sounds, in the flickers of dying lights, in the echo of my breath. And the dreams were getting longer, more real. I saw its shape once, just once, through the forward screen during one of the flickering surges. A serpentine form, pale as the moon coiled around the sub-eyes like abyssal lanterns, each the size of a man unblinking. It had teeth, rows and rows of filament-thin teeth like strands of hair woven into a snare. It smiled, and it invited. I wrote letters to my family in my mind, just in case. But I didn't remember their faces anymore. I remembered its. I remembered the hum, the warmth, the pull. At hour 72, I made a decision. If it wanted me, it could take me. But I would look it in the eye. I waited for the storm inside me to calm. The panic, the resistance, the human voice in my head saying, "Don't." That voice had grown quiet. Not gone, just small. Like a child huddled in a corner as something larger took its place. I powered down all systems except for emergency oxygen. Opened the exterior sensor shutters. The forward floodlights had long since died, but the emergency beams still flickered a slow pulse of green like a heartbeat, struggling to continue. I stared through the screen, and I saw it. It didn't arrive. It was already there. Wrapped around the sub like a serpent, cradling an egg. Coiled, patient, massive. Its skin was pale and iridescent, mottled with patches of black-blue and what looked like glowing fungus. Not scales tissue. Like a deep-sea jellyfish or a mutated leech. It had no visible eyes. but it saw me. It leaned forward part of its body, unfolding toward the viewport with a grace that belied its size. And then came the face, long, too long, jawless, but split down the middle, hinged like petals of a flower. Inside a ring of teeth so fine, they shimmered like silk thread. Behind that darkness, I couldn't breathe. Not from fear, from awe. It was the trench. It had become it. Or maybe it always had been. Then the lights inside the sub began to pulse and sync with its movement. Each flash illuminating the face of something incomprehensible. It opened its mouth. Slow. And from within, something else looked out. A face. Human. Almost. My own, distorted. Smiling. The sub creaked. Metal groaned. The pressure gauge spiked. And I heard it. Clear, calm, warm. You are the last, mouth. Open. I fell forward. My body wasn't mine anymore. My hands reached toward the viewport. My head pressed to the glass. I felt it on the other side, felt its breath. My jaw began to ache, dislocate, stretch. I screamed, but no sound came out. Only bubbles. I don't remember the moment it entered. Only when I awoke, the sub was rising, uncontrolled, and I was alone again. But something in me had changed. Something was missing, or had been added. I don't remember surfacing. One moment I was staring into a void filled with teeth and reflection. The next, I was floating off the coast of Nova Scotia. A fishing trawler spotted me bobbing in the swells alone in an escape pod that hadn't been connected to the sub since launch. I couldn't speak. My throat was raw, my lips swollen. They said I looked dehydrated, starved, but I wasn't hungry. Not for food. They brought me to a decompression chamber. Doctors, government men, questions I didn't answer. They ran scans, took blood. The results were inconclusive. There's nothing biologically wrong, one said. But I heard what he didn't say. Not wrong, just different. I was sent home, discharged, silenced. No one else from the expedition returned. Official reports claimed catastrophic pressure failure. I was the miracle, the lone survivor. They called me lucky. They don't understand what I lost. They don't understand what I brought back. It started small. I stopped sleeping. Not from fear, but because I didn't need to. Then came the humming, low. At first only in dreams, then behind walls, then inside the pipes, then inside me. A vibration, a pulse, a language. The creature's voice, its memories, its hunger. Sometimes I wake up by the shore, mouthful of salt, nails packed with silt, and I know I've walked into the ocean again. Sometimes there are footprints beside mine, slithering, wide, deep. There's something growing beneath my skin. I can feel it when I touch water, a stirring, a knowing. The last thing the creature said still echoes in my skull. You are the last, mouth. Speak. I've tried not to, but lately when I speak, the words aren't mine. They sound like echoes from the trench. They sound like its voice. And if I stare too long into the mirror, I see movement behind my eyes. Not a twitch, a swim. I am the only one who came back human, for now. Story 4. The last dive wasn't recorded. I still see it when I close my eyes. Not clearly, never clearly, just flashes. Teeth, pressure, black water peeling back like torn fabric. It wasn't supposed to end like that. There were safety measures, redundancies, protocols. We trained for years, hundreds of dives logged. But the last one, The one we didn't record, that wasn't a dive. That was an offering. We launched from the research vessel Acheron at 03:41 a.m. Weather clear. Depth target 11,900 meters, an uncharted trench off the Chilean coast. No name, just a coordinate string. We called it F9. A point so deep and narrow it looked more like a tear in the crust than a geological formation. I was team lead. Caldwell and Rivas were my dive techs. Marta ran sonar topside. All feeds green, cameras operational, internal pressure stable. We began descent. The water swallowed us in layers. Light vanished by the 200-meter mark. Current slowed. The external mics picked up only the occasional groan of steel and the faint whisper of our propulsion units. We passed 5,000 meters. I watched the external cameras, murky now, but still functional. Shadows passed in the distance. Schools of fish, thermal pockets, nothing unusual. Caldwell cracked jokes to ease the tension. Rivas hummed softly in Spanish. I logged timestamps. Nothing felt wrong. Until the cameras started to flicker. Not fail, just glitch. A flick here, a frame drop there. But always at the same depth intervals. 6,200, 6,700, 7,400. It was like something was interfering, like something knew we were coming. By 9,000 meters, the water was dead. No movement, no current. Even the sensors stopped reading particulate drift, like the ocean had frozen in place. I asked Marta for status. She didn't answer. Silence filled the comms like a vacuum. Then the lights outside flickered and the feed went black. All 3 exterior cameras went offline. Then a knock from the hull. Soft, once, then again, not metal on metal, not impact. Knuckles. Caldwell turned white. I stared at the pressure reading, still nominal. Then the sonar pinged. Not from us, from something else. And what it showed, a shape. Massive, arcing, curved, a tail, then a dorsal ridge, then a mouth that didn't end. I've seen sharks before, great whites, makos, even Greenland sharks, old, slow, nearly blind. But what we saw on that sonar readout wasn't any known species. It wasn't even a relic of some prehistoric line. It was wrong. Too long. Too fast. Its signal folded over itself like it moved through time as much as water. The sonar couldn't resolve its edges. One moment it was 100 meters off. The next it was right on top of us. And then, silence again. We sat frozen, barely breathing, waiting for the scrape of teeth on metal for the hull to groan or give. But nothing came. No motion, no pressure spike. Just the low, breathless hum of the sub's internal systems. Until Rivas whispered, "It's above us." I didn't ask how he knew. Because I felt it too. The weight, the presence. Like an eye unblinking and patient, bigger than the entire vessel suspended just meters overhead, watching. We powered down everything but life support. Lights, thrusters, external audio. Gone. We drifted in silence, trying to look small. Rivas mumbled prayers. Caldwell wiped sweat from his face, hands shaking. I counted the seconds in my head, but it never moved. Not away, not closer. It just waited. Then the hull made a sound I'll never forget. A groan so deep it felt like my spine was warping. A pressure distortion passed over us like a massive current. Except nothing moved. The water was still. Something had displaced space itself. Then crack. A panel overhead burst and seawater sprayed from a stress fracture in the bulkhead. Just a pinhole at first, then 2, then a line. And through it, came a sound. Not water, not hissing. A growl. I hit emergency ascent. Nothing. The controls were dead. The sub wasn't responding. And that's when I saw the feed flicker back on. Just for one frame. One single cursed frame. The forward camera, lit only by internal backup, caught it. A mouth. Not just jaws, a maw. Teeth like spears curved inward, packed tight in spirals, rows and rows. And beyond them, blackness. Not the black of water or night, but absence. A void that pulled light toward it. A shark the size of a cathedral. But no eyes. Just that endless yawning hunger. And then the hull began to bend. Not collapse bend. Like the sub was being tasted. Tested. Like it was considering whether to bite. The pressure sensors went berserk. Alarms blared falsely, then stopped altogether. The system couldn't decide if we were inside or outside the sub anymore. And for a moment, I believed the impossible, that we were inside its mouth. Not crushed, not consumed, just held. Rivas panicked. He unbuckled, lunged for the hatch to the rear ballast unit, screaming about needing to let it in, as if that was the only way out. Caldwell tackled him, wrestled him to the floor. They were both shouting now. The sound was unbearable in the tight metal coffin. I wanted to stop them, but I couldn't move. I couldn't think. Because the sound outside the hull had changed. It was no longer waiting. It was scraping. Steel doesn't scream unless something is pulling at it with intention, with curiosity, with fingernails. The lights flickered again. And in that strobe-lit second, I saw a bulge press into the viewport from the outside. Not glass warping. Skin, translucent, gray-blue, pulsing with veins that shimmered with bioluminescence. And through that membrane, a shape. Not quite a face. Not quite not. Too smooth. Too long. No features. Just interest. Like something inspecting a puzzle before it chooses how to solve it. Caldwell froze mid-shout, his eyes locked to the window. And then he whispered, dead flat, "It's dreaming us." And then the lights went out, total black. The kind that isn't just lack of light, but the feeling of something pressed against your eyelids. Inside you, behind your eyes. And in that darkness, the sound of water stopped. No rush, no hiss, no vibration, only breath. Wet, massive, right behind the wall. Then came the worst part. The whisper. It wasn't a voice. Not really. But it was. It vibrated through the hull like a whale call inverted. Like something mimicking language, but not getting it quite right. It didn't say words. It implied them. Emotion more than syllables. It said, "I know what you are." And then came the scream. Not mine, not Caldwell's. Rivas. Rivas didn't scream like a man. He screamed like something being unmade. His voice bent in ways I didn't think vocal cords could survive, high and wet and wrong. Caldwell and I scrambled, slamming against bulkheads in the dark, trying to find him, to help him. But we weren't helping anyone. Because Rivas was gone. Not missing. Just transformed. When the backup lights finally kicked in, we found him in the aft chamber, crumpled on the floor in a puddle of liquid that shimmered like oil and stung the air with the smell of burnt ozone. He was breathing, but not through his mouth. His skin was pulsing, in and out, rising, falling, each breath echoing like an engine, thick and wet. His limbs had lengthened, fingers curled into bone-thin hooks. His eyes, Gone. Only a wide slit remained, unblinking, black, reflective, like a shark. Caldwell backed away, shaking, whispering no over and over. But Rivas turned his head no longer, hinged correctly, and smiled. And then he spoke, not with sound, with thought. It pressed into me, into us, a presence, a voice in the brain. He let me in. You should too. Caldwell ran. I froze. And Rivas unfolded. His joints popped backward like his bones had become fluid. He moved toward me, not crawling, not walking, flowing. And something behind his eyes moved, and like something deeper inside was watching from behind a mask of meat. I slammed the hatch shut, twisted the manual lock. He didn't try to follow. He just stood there, smiling, until his skin began to peel, not in pain, in shedding, like he'd only just begun to become. I found Caldwell in the front cabin, hyperventilating. He was trying to get the comms back up, sobbing, pounding keys. I told him Rivas was gone. He didn't ask how. He just whispered, "So are we. We tried the escape pod. Dead. We tried the emergency beacon. Offline. The sub wasn't a machine anymore. It was part of it. Of him. Of them." Caldwell broke. He didn't scream, didn't run, just opened the outer hatch. No suit, no hesitation. He walked out. Like the water was air. Like the trench had always been home. And that's when I realized the creature wasn't attacking. It was calling. I was alone. Trapped inside a vessel that no longer obeyed physics, floating in a pressure zone so deep it should have crushed me to paste. But I wasn't dead. Not yet. Because something wanted me alive. To see. To understand. To choose. I sat in the command chair, blood drying on my hands, lips cracked from thirst and silence. The viewport, long blinded by silt and depth, suddenly cleared. And there it was, in full. The creature. No longer just glimpses, its whole form revealed. It wasn't a shark, not really. It was shaped like one. A grotesque mimicry. A memory of predators stitched together in flesh older than continents. Its body was miles long, coiled through the trench like the roots of a drowned tree. Its skin pulsed with blue light. Not randomly, rhythmically. It was communicating, speaking in pulses, in heartbeat, in hunger. And in the center of it all, where its skull widened and curled like a serpent's crown, an eye opened. And in that eye I saw everything. The truth. The trench wasn't a trench. It was a scar. A wound carved open by something that fell to earth long before language, long before bones. This thing had waited, buried, breeding, dreaming. And now we had awakened it. Not to feed it, to become it. That's why the footage stopped. Why the data corrupted. Why the last dive wasn't recorded. Because it didn't want to be documented. It wanted to be transferred. To continue. To speak through us. I should have died. Instead, it left me. Sent me back, like a gift, or a warning, or a seed. They found me washed ashore 3 days later. The sub was gone. So were Caldwell, Rivas, everyone. Official story equipment failure. Pressure breach. Mission terminated. But I know what really happened. And at night when I sleep, I still feel water in my lungs, salt behind my eyes, and teeth, so many teeth pressing gently against my dreams, waiting, patient. I'm changing, slow but certain. And sometimes when I look into a mirror, I don't recognize what stares back. It smiles, it remembers. Story 5. We opened a coffin buried in coral. It wasn't empty. It shouldn't have been there. Coral doesn't grow like that, layered in rows, symmetrical, almost deliberate. Nature isn't that neat. But we found it just after sunrise, half buried in the reef, 30 feet below the hull of our dive boat during a routine mapping survey off the coast of Belize. It was a shape, rectangular, man-made, trapped beneath a crust of blood-red coral. We thought it was a ship artifact, or maybe a burial chest from a colonial wreck. Something historical, valuable. We didn't think coffins ended up this far offshore. And we definitely didn't think they ever came back up. There were 5 of us on the dive team. I was lead marine archaeologist. Lauren was our oceanographer. Jesse the dive captain. Nina handled drone footage. Marcus did the cutting. We'd been mapping the reef for weeks. Nothing unusual. Parrotfish, lionfish, a few sharks in the distance. Coral bleaching, warming currents. Everything you expect when you spend your life documenting the slow death of the sea. But this was new. This wasn't rot. This was waiting. The coral was thick. It had grown in perfect sheets, like scales, almost decorative. Marcus started the cut, thinking it would take hours. But the reef flaked off easily, too easily. Beneath the crust, the surface was black, smooth, metal number too soft. Wood, not exactly. It felt like bone. We brought it up on the 3rd day, roped it to a crane off the bow and lifted it inch by inch. It emerged from the water, slick with brine and something thicker, darker. The moment it hit air, the wind died. Just like that. Dead calm. The waves froze around us. The gulls stopped calling. And somewhere in the engine room, the backup generator kicked on, even though the power hadn't failed. I remember Jesse saying, "Something's wrong." I remember Lauren nodding and saying nothing. I remember the taste in the air. Iron. We laid the thing flat on deck. 6.5 feet long, sealed tight. No seams, no latches, no hinges. But there was a symbol burned into the lid. A spiral, winding inward. Too perfect to be handmade, too old to be anything else. Nina took a photo. The camera died. Battery full. Memory card empty. We should have thrown it back. We should have left it in the deep. But curiosity is a curse, and we'd already touched it. We didn't touch it that night. We drank instead. Sat in a loose circle around the thing, pretending to relax, pretending we hadn't dragged something ancient out of a place it clearly wanted to be left in. But no one left. No one spoke above a whisper. The longer it stayed on deck, the quieter the sea became. Waves died. The moon slipped behind cloud. Even the boat creaked less, like the whole ocean had gone still to listen. Jesse tried to be brave. He walked up to it around midnight, bottle in one hand, flashlight in the other. He tapped the lid. Once. The thump echoed far longer than it should have. Like the wood wasn't hollow, but endless. We found Marcus standing at the stern just before dawn, staring into the water. His face looked wrong. Eyes glassy, pupils blown wide. "I saw her," he said. We asked who. He didn't answer, just turned and walked below deck, dripping wet, even though he hadn't been overboard. We checked the cameras. They were blank. Again. Nina stopped sleeping. She claimed the spiral burned through her eyelids when she closed them. Said it moved, that it was getting tighter, drawing inward. That it wasn't just a symbol, it was a map, a doorway, or a trap. She scratched it into her wrist during breakfast over and over with the tip of a compass needle. Lauren ran new samples from the coral. She told me in whispers it wasn't reef at all. No calcium, no polyps, no biological structure. She said it wasn't grown. It was secreted, like resin or skin, and that it was alive. I wanted to believe it was nerves, group hysteria, the bends, sleep deprivation. But I'd started dreaming of a black sea calm as glass, of a box floating toward me, and something inside it pressing gently at the lid, waiting for someone to let it breathe. It opened on the fourth night, not by hands, by choice. We heard it just past 3 a.m., a soft creak like wet wood sighing, then a sharp crack like bone under pressure. We ran to the deck, barefoot, flashlights cutting across the dark. The lid had shifted, not fully, just enough. Enough to let the wind return. But the breeze that followed didn't feel like air. It felt intentional. Damp, warm, scented with something wrong. Like decay, yes, but deeper, older. Like something once dead had begun to breathe again. The spiral had changed. It had deepened. Burned further into the wood, cutting grooves where none had been before. Worse, Nina's wrist had changed too. The same grooves had appeared there overnight. Not scratched this time, raised. Like the flesh itself was mimicking the pattern. She didn't wake when we shook her, didn't breathe either, but her eyes were open, and she was smiling. We wrapped her in a tarp, not to dispose of her, just to hide her. From us, from it. That morning, Marcus climbed the mast. Climbed it like a man possessed, barefoot and bleeding skin torn from barnacles and cable. We tried to stop him. He laughed. Said the sky was a lid. Said the stars had spirals too. Then he leapt into the sea. No splash, just gone. The rest of us stopped eating. Not by choice. Food rotted in minutes. Water turned brackish in sealed bottles. Even metal rusted in our hands. It was as if time itself had shifted around us, slowed for the coffin, sped for everything else. It wanted us weak. Lauren sat next to it at sunset. Cross-legged, calm. Said she wanted to listen. Said it was singing. I told her it wasn't. She told me not yet. Then she reached forward and touched the edge, and the lid opened the rest of the way. We didn't see what was inside. Not really. Only shadow. Only the shape of something sitting upright, breathing. And then Lauren said, "She's beautiful," and walked straight into the open coffin. "Let me know when you're ready to go deeper." Only Jesse and I remain. But not for long. After Lauren stepped inside, the lid closed on its own. No slam, no sound. Just a gentle slide like a slow breath pulling back into lungs. The wind died again, and the spiral deepened once more, so deep now it split the surface of the wood, forming a crack. Not random, not damage. A mouth, smiling. Jesse wanted to burn it. He poured diesel from the reserve tank, doused the entire deck, lit a flare in trembling fingers. Nothing caught, not even the flame. It hissed out midair like something unseen inhaled it before it touched the wood. He threw the canister overboard, then vomited black sludge into a bucket for an hour. I tried the radio. Dead. Even the emergency beacon blinked uselessly, the light strobing in rhythm with the spiral on the lid. Everything was synced now. Heartbeat, time, thought. That night I saw her again. Lauren, on the bow, hair wet, eyes glowing faint blue. Her mouth didn't move, but her voice filled the cabin. "You brought it to surface. Now surface must become the deep." I shut the door, didn't sleep, didn't blink. By morning, Jesse was gone. No splash, no note, no signs of struggle, just his boots perfectly placed beside the coffin. and a spiral carved into the deck. Still bleeding. Now it's just me. And the box, and the thing inside it that no longer waits. It watches. I feel it behind the lid. The pressure of eyes, teeth, will. It doesn't want escape. It doesn't need release. It wants to be known. It wants to become. I haven't spoken in hours. Not aloud. But I hear my own voice whispering back at me from the other side of the wood. It tells me things I didn't know I'd forgotten. It tells me it's time. I don't know how long I've been sitting here. The sea is calm again. Too calm. The kind of stillness that makes your heart beat louder just to fill the space. The spiral on the lid no longer pulses. It breathes. It rises and falls with the tide. With me. I haven't eaten in 3 days. Haven't needed to. The hunger is different now. It's not for food. It's for memory. For weight. For self. And I feel it gnawing gently like teeth grazing the inside of my ribs. I speak to it now. Not aloud. In thought. And it answers not in words, but presence. It shows me visions of coral growing like veins, of coffins scattered across the ocean floor, tucked into reefs and trenches like seeds waiting for rain, of things inside them that are not dead, just waiting to be found. I asked it what it was. It didn't answer. It opened. Inside, not a corpse, not bones, just a shape, a mirror, and in it, me, smiling, but not from joy, from recognition, because I remember now. I knew it. I was part of it before breath, before thought, and I brought it home. The boat is sinking now, not fast, gently, almost kindly. Coral climbs the hull like vines, reclaiming a monument. Salt bleeds from the walls. The sky above is dark and low, like the sea has turned upside down. I lie beside the coffin. My pulse matches its rhythm. The spiral slows. One last turn, and I feel it enter. Not violently, lovingly. Like slipping into warm water, like returning. There is no ending here. Only arrival. Only the deep. And now it waits again. Not buried, not sealed, just beneath your feet. What you've just heard isn't just a story. It's a trace of something real. A moment someone lived and didn't escape from. A door that opened once and never truly closed. Because these stories don't end. They echo. They wait. And they change you just a little more every time you listen. Even now, if you listen closely, you might hear it whisper your name. If you crave more true ghost stories, subscribe to True Ghost Vault now.